is an Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Unspoiled, covering The Dark Tower, Book 7, The Dark Tower, Chapters 1 through 3. In these chapters, we bid a fond and very respectful farewell to Father Callahan, who went out like a fucking champ. Also, floating cars and waves, things. Okay, sure. Welcome to Unspoiled.
He went out like a champ, though, is the important part.
He really did. This was like a really satisfying description of a death scene. Like, being in his head in that moment was like the best, I think.
Yeah.
And I don't think it wouldn't have been as epic feeling if it weren't from his point of view.
Yeah, and I think also just the moments leading up to it when, like, he realizes that he's kind of been forgiven and that he can, like, command the powers of the Lord again. I don't know. It's a great scene. I'm sad that he's gone, but it's a great scene.
It was, like, I've been kind of... I don't want to say I've been, like, not a fan of his, but I have felt like, where the fuck did you come from? And I feel like he gave him such a great death that now I actually do care that he's gone. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
And that can sometimes feel really cheap. But I don't feel like it was him trying to manipulate me this time, which is something that, the thing I always think of is fucking The Walking Dead, where you would know somebody was about to die because you'd suddenly get an episode with a bunch of, like, their backstory and shit. And as soon as you started to get that, you'd be like, oh, fuck, he's about to be it. He's about to get it. And this wasn't, like, it just going in... I mean, have we been in his head before? Really?
The only times we were close to being in his head were, I think, when he was, like, telling his story, where like, he was the narrator for those three chapters, I think, in Wolves of the Kala.
It's not really, like, that's his story and not a perspective on what's actually happening. So it's very, it's a different vibe because you don't really get an assessment on what he thinks of the gunslingers and this whole situation.
I'm trying to think if we got his point of view at the end of the last book, like when because they basically repeat this scene right here. Mm-hmm. You know, the first part of this first chapter that we're looking at is kind of a rehash of, like, okay, remember they're about to go into the Dixie Pig, right? And I think that scene in Song of Susannah may have had this perspective, but if we have had it, it hasn't been very long, and it's really informative.
All right, I'm gonna. There's things that I keep on, like, kind of wanting to jump into, and I'm, like, having to restrain myself because I've started to go to therapy recently, and I've only gone like 5 or 6 times now, and the last time that I went yesterday, my therapist was like, all right, I'm going to stop you because you have a tendency to change subjects in mid-sentence and then go on another tangent, and we never actually deal with what you started off talking about. And I was
and you're like,
what?
You're like, Doc, please don't, like, rehabilitate that shit out of me because that's my livelihood.
Yeah, so I don't want to interrupt myself.
All right, well, you want to,
like, the way that she phrased it.
Do you want to, like, start from the beginning?
Yeah,
so my name is Miles.
What's up, Miles? And I'm Natasha.
Hi, Natasha. How are you? Have you read these books?
I've not read these books.
Oh, that's crazy. I have. I've read all these books, and we've been talking about this series for over, I wouldn't say, what are we coming up on, 3 years? that we've been doing this.
Is it?
I think
I'm gonna look now because I can see on Spreaker what like the first episode upload was.
I think if we're not at 3 years, I feel like we're close.
I just can't like. Twitter the other day was like, "You've been on Twitter 6 years for Unspoiled Show," and I was like, "Holy fucking shit!" Like, the passage of time simply doesn't mean anything anymore.
Yeah,
you know, like it's banana pants.
I mean, it does, but it doesn't make itself known as easily as I feel like it used to.
Yeah. All right. Gunslinger was published January 21st, 2016. So 2 years.
That was the first one? Oh, wow. Yep. I didn't realize we started that late. Okay. I thought we had started while I was still living in the Northwest, but I guess we started right after I got back to Tucson.
Yeah. Okay. What else did we record together? Or was it Song of Ice and Fire? We must have been doing like the World of Ice and Fire book. We were doing World of Ice and Fire, and we were doing Season 5 Game of Thrones at the time, actually. Ah, okay.
I was living in the Pacific Northwest when
you quit.
Yeah. Somebody so we have a Smash Fiction Facebook group now, kind of, stealing all your ideas. Mm-hmm. And because you invented the idea of Facebook groups. But so we have one now, and there was a conversation happening in there today about like which stories, like TV shows or book series, did you quote unquote break up with?
Oh, okay.
And I started talking about Game of Thrones, and I was like, yeah, so that was why I broke up with Game of Thrones. Although I don't imagine most breakups involve going out and like telling everyone you know why the breakup happened and how much you hate your ex, and that like they should never talk to your ex either or be friends with them. And then going on a podcast about dating your ex and being like, no, you know what? I'm not dating her anymore, but I want to hear about how you're dating her so I can shit all over that.
Yeah, when you phrase it like that, it feels very voyeuristic and creepy.
Oh, anyway. That's completely beside the point. The point is, what was the point? The point is we've been doing this for a long time.
Yeah.
And we are at
And we never went back and finished A World of Ice and Fire, and I'm 100% fine with that.
Yeah, I think that book actually went mainly into, like, paper flowers for my wedding, actually. Because I was like, well, what are you good for? Well, your pictures are pretty. Let's make decorations out of you.
Oh, snap.
So, anyway. Yeah. But we have finally arrived at Book 7, was the point that I was getting to.
Right on.
We are here, after conquering the short and sweet Book 6, which I still like, despite spending most of our coverage talking shit about it. Still really like that book.
Weird how that happens.
Yeah, I really Ready Player One that. But yeah, so here we are. Last book. The sixth one kind of ended on a cliffhanger with them going into the Dixie Pig, and with Susannah and Mia basically having their baby, I think we can say at this point.
Right.
And Jake and Callahan found the little turtle, the Scorpada, I guess is how you pronounce it. And they go into the Dixie Pig, and basically Jake is like ready to die. He thinks he's going to get it.
It's so funny because, like, if it weren't Jake, I don't feel like worried about him. Mm-hmm. But I can see from his perspective why he is so sure. 100%. I understand why. I'm just like, this would feel really hopeless.
They walk in and, like, everybody has basically just settled down from Mia passing through there.
Mm-hmm.
And the dude, Tweety Bird, as Jake calls him, is calling upon everybody to turn and kill them, which is when Callahan climbs up on the table and holds up the turtle, and they all get, like, obsessed with it. And for a minute, it looks like everything's going to be okay.
I really imagined the minion sound when he did that.
Just the collective, ooh.
Exactly. This honestly, I didn't think everything was going to be okay. I was surprised that this worked at all. I knew Scorpada was going to be helpful because of the fact that it had mesmerized so many people already. Mm-hmm. But I wasn't sure if because these things aren't your average bear humans, that it would have the same effect. Like if I wasn't certain that it would mesmerize them. I thought it might actually repel them. Like make them avert their eyes and be like put it away, you know?
The cross does to the vampires later on.
Yeah, or something like sunlight to vampires, where they can't even like look at it, and they put their hands up to shield their faces, kind of thing. One thing
that's interesting, and we can talk about it now or later, but when we get Roland's perspective on this whole scene, when he and Eddie like kind of astral project over here, Roland refers to them as essentially a different species.
Yeah, that's true. I forgot about that.
Called the Taheen or the Cantoi. And basically is like... It's almost like they're a faction. Like one of the factions in whatever this war is. And he comments on like, oh shit, are they all working for the Crimson King? Mm-hmm. So... They're supernatural, but they are still kind of weirdly people.
Right.
In a way that, like... It doesn't seem like vampires really are from what we see here.
Yeah, that's true. And like I had said something, I think, before about like what the hell is the Cantoi, because that gets brought up in those like chants.
Oh yeah, totally.
And I was just like, what? And so it's sort of funny that it's like taken this long to find out what that means. But yeah, they're worse than I expected, but also like a little bit easier to control than I expected because I am going to jump ahead a tiny bit here. And just the fact that when Callahan pulls that gun, that the reaction most of them have is simply, you can't.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is hilarious to me, that like it's not even just no, don't, it's an assumption that he couldn't possibly. Why?
Right. I think he has a thought where he's like, oh, is this not how it was supposed to go?
I guess that they haven't faced somebody who's been able to like defend themselves, or maybe it's just the weirdness of them is so overwhelming that people just kind of break when they see them.
I'm not sure. What I feel like it is, and I could be totally wrong about this, but how it seems to me is the Crimson King and the people that he employs, like Walter and like that Sayre dude, are like really good at telling people what they want to hear. And I imagine that they are good at like convincing people, don't worry, everything's gonna go smoothly. You know, they know that they're up against fucking gunslingers, so it's not gonna go smoothly and people are gonna die, but they put it over to their like henchmen as like, there is no possible way anything could go wrong, we hold every advantage, there's only like 5 of them, like it's gonna be fine. So that reaction is very much like, wait a minute, you said it was going to be fine, dead.
Right.
I don't know. That's how I think about it, but I'm not suggesting that's the right way to think about it.
Okay. That makes as much sense to me as anything. Like, I don't want to sit there and try and act like there's a rational way to react when somebody's about to like pull a trigger, you know, because I really don't know if somebody were holding a gun up to me, what I would say. I think I'd probably just be like, don't, or please. And I guess you can't is similar to please, except that there's like an entitlement bit to it. And I'm sure these creatures have that problem.
Sure.
Right? So yeah, I'm not even judging them. That's fine.
I feel like if I had a gun pointed at me, I would start to like try and like fast talk somebody, or be like, "Hey now, hey, you put that down." You know.
So basically, you'd be like, like an auctioneer trying to just sort of confuse them.
I'd be like, I'd say, excellent. Just what I was hoping you would do. I would say, you passed the test. This was a test, my friend, and you passed. Come with me to the back room.
That is pretty ballsy. I might approve of that a little bit.
If I could actually do it in a real life situation where a gun was being pointed at me, I would be very impressed with myself.
All right. So yeah, we start off at the very beginning at the spot that is just before they run in at the end of the last book. And these things come out. He mesmerizes them with the Scorpada. Jake is like horrified by the cockroach bug flea things that come out from under the table.
Yeah. Okay.
And Oi just starts to like dispatch them without having to really fight. It doesn't seem like. It seems there's something about the Callahan says something like, of course it's no problem with a bumbler here, as if that's like what bumblers are made for.
I think Roland says that, but before Roland gets there, or before we get Roland's perspective, Callahan is like, maybe... I think he speculates that, like, this is what bumblers were for. When Oi starts killing them.
They both think that.
Yeah.
Both, like, Callahan notices it, and then Roland kind of says it himself, too, when he's in his perspective.
Kind of a weird thing to have happen out of nowhere.
Right?
I will say, though, I wanted to talk about the bugs real quick, because Roland thinks of them as little doctors. And,
I did not remember that. He does?
Yeah, he does. It's in his... God, I'll find it.
Sorry, I'm like... For some reason, normally when I open up a book on my Kindle, it goes to both... Like, it goes to all of my Kindle devices, my phone, both my computers, and my actual Kindle. And for some reason, it has been not uploading everywhere. It's only on my computer, and navigating it on my computer is so much more of a pain and way less intuitive.
Yeah. No, okay, so I got it, though. So now clattering bugs came pouring out from under the table. They were of a sort Roland had seen before, and any doubts he might still have held about what was behind that tapestry departed at the sight of them. They were parasites, blood drinkers, camp followers, grandfather fleas. Probably not dangerous while there was a bumbler present, just again. But of course, when you spied the little doctors in such numbers, the grandfathers were never far behind. And the reason this stuck out to me is because I've talked a lot at great length, I think, on this podcast and on like Facebook groups and message chats and shit about just how much I disliked Insomnia and didn't finish it and have no intention of finishing it. But the one scene that really stuck out to me in Insomnia, and I don't know if this is something I've talked about on this show or not. I've talked about it recently, but I don't know if it was here. The one scene that really stuck out to me in that book was a dream that the main character has when he's on like a beach and his wife, who's I think dead at that point, is like buried in the sand with only her head above the sand. And like she's talking to him about some shit, and then like her head breaks open and like these bugs start pouring out. And it was like the most horrifying thing to me, and I remember it very clearly. And I also remember that there were these dudes in the book called Little Bald Doctors. There were these
bald doctors?
Little bald doctors. So, like, literally, there were these three little, like, bald men that go around with scissors, and I don't even remember, dude. It was really stupid.
Dislike.
But,
don't like anything about that descriptor, thank you very much.
Anyway, I'm noticing a connection here, and the, the bugs are kind of described the same way, and, I feel like Insomnia said that the bugs are some way related to, like, darkness or evil, which might be them being as heralds of the vampires here. I don't know. My point is that This is almost enough to make me want to try and read Insomnia again. It's not enough, but it's almost enough.
Well, that's a very good story. Thank you for taking all that time to tell us it almost makes you want to do something, but not really.
You're welcome.
Moving on, sir. This is actually, Rashawn and I just covered one of the side stories for Dresden Files, and there is a troll that's head breaks open, and there are tons of little trolls in it, and they all jump out and go running away. So...
That's funny.
Yeah, it's funny and also horrifying.
I mean, it's less horrifying if you imagine they're all making Zoidberg noises as they run away.
Oh my god. So he gets so distracted here because that tapestry gets pulled aside and all of these fucking just one step away from eldritch horror looking things come tumbling out after having, eaten a bunch of human flesh. And he's basically mesmerized in a bad way. Because he can't, they're worse than inhuman looking. They're wrong. Like, they're the kind of faces that should not exist.
Well, I mean, it says the description, the description that I like the best, what does it say? The skin of their cheeks and brows, even the backs of their hands, tumorous with wild teeth.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck? What does that mean?
The way that King describes these things is so deeply upsetting that it's hard to read. Like, at one point he says something okay, so they start to come at Callahan. Jake is so distracted that Callahan tries to yell at him to just go, and Jake doesn't move. Fucking Roland, we find out, is like watching and goes into Callahan and screams at him to go, and he still is just transfixed.
Well, Roland at first, talks to Callahan before the Type 1 vampires even show up and is like, hey, get Jake to go on.
Right.
But Jake won't move until, as we later find out, until Eddie actually goes into Callahan's body and tells Jake they'll kill Oi first, and that's finally enough to make Jake move, but yeah.
Which, I get that, Jake. I don't even blame you, buddy.
Yeah, I love the bit where Roland is like, damn, I should have taught him more about betrayal, because he's still not willing to abandon his friends at any given moment.
Bless his little trusting, loving heart.
Anyway.
But yeah, so Jake finally gets moving, and Callahan pulls the crucifix out, and he fucking... Alright, listen. He stabs one in the face with it. And it goes into this thing's flesh as if it were paper. That's how it's described. And then a thick, yellowish, curd-like substance comes pouring out, and the thing falls down, its face implodes, and it basically melts into a yellow, wet pile of basically pus. Is what I'm thinking. Ichor is black usually, isn't it?
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
It is...
Now, pus is probably better.
This is the worst thing I've ever heard. The whole description of it happening literally made me nauseous. I never, ever want to even think about this ever again after we finish recording this today. Okay. And I don't think if somebody tried to ask me, hey, what do you think is the worst way to describe something disappearing or dying, that I could, even in my has not even entered his darkest dreams. I swear to God, I wouldn't come up with something this horrifying. King, what in the fuck happened to you? Who hurt you? This is messed up, my friend.
It is. What do you... Is it... It's that it's pus, right? Like, if it were blood, then it would be fine.
It's a combination of that it's pus and that it's not just like... He doesn't even just pop like a balloon or something. It's that the stuff pours out of this one hole.
Yeah.
Like, there's like a... Like, it's as if somebody popped a zit and they didn't realize that the zit was like pulling the plug on a bathtub.
Ew.
And that their entire self was going to come out that zit.
Yeah, no, okay, I think you nailed it. You nailed it.
There are certain things that I don't react well to, and it's like, even as much as you can give me all kinds of sort of, what's the word I want? Warning, I guess. Mm-hmm. I still kind of flip out, and pus is one. Another one is maggots. Don't do well. I'm trying to think of what's another one that I like just immediately have like a, oh no, we're not doing this kind of reaction to, but I can't think. I'm sure there's another one.
I mean, that's how I felt with the bugs coming out of the lady's head, you know?
Okay.
Because, bugs are a big one for me, personally.
Bugs can be. It really kind of depends on the kind of bugs and the language that is used to describe them. Also, I think can make a difference.
So when I was in high school, we used to play a lot of Diablo 2, right? Mm-hmm. Because that was back when I didn't hate video games and didn't hate Diablo 2 in particular. Well, when I was still innocent. And actually, my sister was playing it, and me and my friend were watching her play, and we were standing on either side of her, and kind of with like our heads really close to hers, right? Because we were like really intensely watching her play. And there's one quarter of the game. The game happens in 4 acts, and one of them is like all bugs, like all the monsters are bugs, all of them, of like varying horrific natures, you know, and disgusting like things. But she doesn't care. Fucking, she doesn't give a shit about bugs. She's like a farm girl. She's tough. She doesn't care. I'm like freaking out because there's all these bugs, and I'm like, I don't like it because they're gross. But she's fine. She's fine. She's fine. She's fine. She's running around killing shit, and this cloud of like locusts descends on her character. But it is literally, the graphic rendering is a cloud of black specks, and that's it. Surrounds her character and starts like attacking her health, and she screams at the top of her lungs, and me and my friend are right next to her and like grab our ears. We're like, ah!
Yeah, you know what? That's fair. We all have our thing, man.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm getting really obsessed with bugs on this episode. I'm sorry, guys. I don't know what's going on.
I know.
Man.
There's got to be somebody else out there who's like, apparently this shit doesn't bother either of you enough because you won't fucking stop talking about it. Sorry, guys.
Sorry. Anyway, so, yeah, they're vampires. Right, and Callahan kills one with the cross. And, shouting, the power of God commands you, the power of Christ commands you, the Ka of Midworld commands you, and, of course, the power of the White commands you. Which is interesting.
I'm just leaving it there.
Okay, yeah, but seriously, though. So, right after he kills the thing, right?
Right.
He thinks about how he has the power now, because, like, the cross is glowing white. Like, Callahan clearly has regained the favor of God or whatever, and is no longer damned and abandoned, right? Like, that is made very clear. And the first thing he thinks is the following words, free at last, great God Almighty, I'm free at last.
I forgot about that. That's unfortunate. That
is a thing.
Yeah, we're just gonna sail right on past that one. Cool.
Okay. So then, we'll just sailing around past it. We're going. One of the vampires tells him to put it down, and he's like, all right, sure. Puts it back in his shirt, fucking hands start glowing white, his gun starts glowing white, and
That's so great.
yeah, and he is just like fucking glowing with holy power, man, and they all fall back before him.
Indeed, sir.
Yes.
I like it. What
And
is
then
going on over
then
there?
he dies. What?
It sounded like you took a bite of something really delicious, the way that you were just like,
Oh, I took a sip of water. I didn't realize I was getting into it that much, but
wow.
Water's great. What are you gonna do?
I want some of that water, buddy.
It's good water. We have good water here in Arizona, believe it or not. Which maybe you shouldn't. I don't know.
So anyway, Jake goes on, but we don't really get to see what happens with him.
No.
We cut from Callahan getting taken down, but not taken down like he's getting eaten. He gets taken down in that he realizes that there's no escape, and he's gonna, first of all, shoot 2 of them, which is great.
Yeah.
I approve.
Yeah.
And he is going to shoot himself so that they can't get him, which later on, Eddie and Roland are talking about this, and apparently it was like on their minds that they could turn Callahan. Did that come through to you? Because I didn't realize that that was even something.
What do you mean by turn? Like, you mean turn him into a vampire?
Yeah, I wasn't sure if that was like what they were gonna try and do, but there was something about the way that Callahan, or no, that Jake, Eddie says, did they? And Roland says no. And then he demonstrates shooting himself and says they didn't get him.
Well, yeah, and Callahan actually thinks, I think, that, like when he's about to kill himself, he thinks that's the only way because he doesn't want to become a monster like them or something like that. So I think that's the idea, is that they were going to turn him. I don't remember exactly how vampires work in Salem's Lot. We're not really given a great explanation of how they work in the Dark Tower series, so I think, considering that Callahan is kind of the link between those two, I think it's safe to assume that they work the way they did in Salem's Lot. And Salem's Lot was all about, like, people getting turned. Okay. So I don't know if... I can't remember if it was a thing where it's like, if you get bit, then you're going to get turned. One of those kind of vampires.
Right.
So I think that's probably the assumption, just because I can't imagine, like... I can't... At least maybe bit by a type 1 vampire, maybe? Mm-hmm. You get turned instantly, like, because they're so powerful. Because I can't imagine why they would want to turn him if they had a choice. Right.
That's kind of what I was just like... They act like that's their goal, but I just wasn't sure, like, what purpose that would serve. If they thought, oh, well, we'll turn him and we'll use him as, like, a means of, like, getting to Jake or something, which doesn't seem very practical. I don't feel like they can turn him instantly. Like, that's not how shit works in King's universes. But, so I guess it's probably something that would make more sense if I had read the other ones and had some context in that way.
Yeah, it's interesting, and we're going to have to decide how we want to handle this book in general in kind of those ways, because we're getting to the point where, I don't know, there's a lot of crossover in this book with his other work. Like, there's more.
Right.
And so, I can explain a lot of things. If you want me to, it's really kind of up to you. But yeah, just so you know, there's going to be a lot of talking about, like, oh, this is from such and such a book, or whatever.
Yeah, I think just like we'll just wait. Unless it feels like I'm missing a really important plot point because we didn't talk about something, we can just leave it for now, and you can explain stuff to me once we're done. If there's something really important, or if listeners are, like, screaming at their iPhones right now going, "That's not what it is, you dumbass." You got, hit up Miles rather than me and ask him to talk about the thing.
Y'all do. Anyway, okay, so can I give you? Let me give you an example. I don't even know if this is from. So what happens here basically, is that two of the Cantoi manage to knock the Scorpada out of Callahan's hand, right? Which is how they're able to break their mesmerization and attack him, allowing the vampires to close in. And it says, when he loses the Scorpada, it says, the Scorpada tumbled to the red rug, bounced beneath one of the tables, and there, like a certain paper boat some of you may remember, passes out of this tale forever.
Right.
I don't remember a fucking paper boat in the Dark Tower series.
It's not. It's from It.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah.
Right on. I never actually read it.
I really enjoyed it, but I also completely understand why there's a lot of people out there who never finished it.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those that, it's one of those where you're like, oh, right, King loves the sound of his own voice.
Right. And
he takes an awful long time to get to the point sometimes.
It's a lot of this kind of shit, you know what I mean? Like, knowing what that paper boat referred to doesn't change the story at all for you, but it is kind of neat to know, right?
Right. Gotcha.
Also, Callahan has a brief regret for his anti-abortion views before he dies, which is nice.
Yes.
He's like, damn, we should have killed that kid.
Agreed. I will admit to feeling a certain amount of, futile satisfaction there.
Sure.
Sort of like, when Trump supporters are like, I've made a terrible mistake. And you're like, there's no good actually in you realizing that, but also, good.
I mean, better they realize it than continue to support him, right? I mean,
right. This is exactly it.
It's nice to remember Callahan as someone who ultimately saw the light on the abortion issue before he went out.
Right. Agreed.
And then before he dies, as they're biting into him, Callahan's last words are, "Heil Roland, Heil Gunslinger." And he says, "May you find your tower, Roland, and breach it, and may you climb to the top." And, that's Father Callahan. There he goes.
Yeah, I liked it.
Yep.
It's a real dignified way to go, man. Good for you.
And, huh?
I said,
Yeah, totally. No, I think it was a great way for Callahan to go out. I was really fine with it.
Did you just hang up on me?
What? No.
Oh, you completely disappeared there for a second. You said, I think it was and then you were gone.
Oh, weird. I said I think it was a great way for Callahan to go out.
Oh, okay, cool. Sorry, that was so weird because we're on the phone with each other instead of doing it the way that we had been doing, so you wouldn't think that this would even fucking be able to happen anymore. And yet, here we are. Oh, God.
All right, well, apparently we're just cursed.
All right, so let's go to Eddie and Roland because they're having a weird fucking thing happen.
Yeah, Eddie and Roland know about all this and saw all this happening because as they're driving down the road, all of a sudden there's this wave, and they get, lifted up like there's no gravity and suspended in midair, along with everything in the car and the car itself, and they basically go Todash and see some shit.
They see some shit.
They see some shit.
Yeah, this was wild. I really, really liked this because it felt super cinematic. Like, I could picture everything. And I could even hear it. You ever have that when you're reading something and you're having... I guess that's what I mean when I say cinematic, is that it feels like I am watching it, and in the, way of a... it gives me the impressions that a movie would, where I'm watching and hearing it. So when they start to, sail upward and that feeling of, their stomach going wild, like when you're going down on a roller coaster, and all of the objects in the cab of the car are floating in the air, and even the tires have come up off the ground, and it's just... And I imagined this happening on camera, and there being like a lens flare just as it happened, everything slowing down, sound stopping, and there being like the soundtrack, if they had a radio playing, would like start to like completely disappear, and then there'd be a like kind of tinnitus sort of, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that I just like, I really, really saw this, and I thought it was such like, a part of me is sort of, you know, side-eyeing having something like this appear in the story so late in the game that we've never seen before, riding a wave on the beam that has never been mentioned, but then Roland tries to act like, oh yeah, that's a thing.
Yeah,
so, you know, in some ways I'm just kind of like, yeah, all right, fine. But
yeah,
it was so cool.
I mean, we've been dealing with that basically since he came back to writing these. Like, I would say since book 5, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, it's kind of been happening where it's like, oh, also this exists. And Roland knows about it because he was taught about it as a kid by that teacher guy.
Right.
So, yeah, it's real, and just deal with it. And it's like, okay, at this point, it's not even so much that King has earned the goodwill, although he has mostly. It's that we want to know how this ends, and we're totally willing to hand wave shit like this. You know what I mean? Where it's
Indeed.
like, yeah, I don't fucking explain it to me. Tell me what happens to Roland.
Yeah.
So
agreed.
You know, it works basically for that reason. But I totally agree with you about the cinematic nature of the whole thing. Like,
That's a really like. It's an interesting point you bring up too. Is that you start to hand wave things because you just fucking want to know what happens. And I will talk about something that receives a lot of ire, which is the Twilight series, which I could not put down, and not because it was so well written, but because it took so fucking long for things to happen, and I just fucking wanted to know what happened. Oh my god. And it just took so long to get anywhere. And so, you know, there goes a series that did not need to be 3 fucking books long. That was nonsense. And turning it into, 4 movies? Like, you guys are so high.
I tried to read the first Twilight book, based on a deal I made with a 5th grade girl. Which I don't know if I've told that story or not, but it's a good one. Tell it sometime, if I haven't told it already. But bottom line, I agreed. I made a deal with this 5th grade student of mine that I would read Twilight, because I was talking shit about it without ever having read it, if she read The Golden Compass.
Oh, okay.
Because her parents were super religious.
Okay.
So, yeah, I tried to read it. I think I got 100 pages in. I remember thinking, like, the only thing I care about in the story is I want to know why this girl is in Washington when she clearly doesn't want to be in Washington.
Because she's a teenager and she doesn't have a choice.
Exactly. Well, I mean, she did have a choice, though. Like, she did it to piss off her mom because, like, her mom had a new boyfriend. And I was like, okay, well,
yeah, bye. My thing with those, and it's like the same thing as a lot of just characters in general, where they try and make them really good people but in these ways that I don't find that to be actually a compelling piece of evidence that somebody is good. And one of the things with her is that she falls for this dude out of nowhere, but she won't take his money, and she won't take gifts, and she won't accept them like throwing her birthday parties. And there came a point where I was just like, hey, you know what? Maybe get the fuck over it. Because there's like whole chapters dedicated to her being uncomfortable with extravagant presents. And I'm like, they literally have more money than God. You're not putting them out. Nobody's judging you for taking shit. Just shut the fuck up about it. I'm so tired of hearing it. Anyway, this is not a Twilight podcast.
You can hear about that more on the upcoming Twilight podcast with Natasha and I.
I'm about to get messages from people going, I kind of want you to fucking cover that and just rip it apart. And I'm like, right now, guys, I'm telling you right now, it's not happening. Just put your phone down, delete the email. So these two are watching what's happening. They, we already talked about how they kind of like go inside of Callahan and talk through him and see what's happening there. But before that, they see Mia and Susannah.
Yeah.
And I just hate it so much. And I just want this to be over. And I'm so annoyed that we had 3 chapters have not dealt with the two of them yet. Can we just get to it already? Holy shit, I'm bored now.
I remember thinking, like, I remember when I picked up the 7th book for the first time because I was really, like, anxious to see what happened with Jake and Callahan, and I was like, okay, good, starting off right, we're starting with the fight in the bar, like, let's do this. But I was sure that the fucking birth would be after that.
Yeah, same. And I was sure that when we went to Eddie and Roland, that we'd go back to the two of them after Eddie and Roland were out. That we had just cut to the two of them to get an explanation of why we could hear their voices throughout the scene. And then once we had the explanation, that we would move back into the thing that's a fucking giant climax.
Right.
But instead we just get bounced back into their story, and I don't understand why King feels the need to do this. Like, there's a difference between building tension and just drawing some shit out in this way that feels like you had better make this payoff in a huge way, or else you have just basically given us blue balls for no reason.
Yeah.
It's just, you know what I mean? Like, and that's the thing, is that you were talking about earning goodwill earlier, and I think as an author, he has lost my goodwill in that I used to trust him doing things like this much more, because in other stories, this paid off a little bit better. He would build something up over a while, and then there'd be this huge set piece, and you'd feel like you'd just eaten a good meal and be like, oh, right, there it is. That's one good thing in it, is there's a few different scenes that get set up, and the payoff is so fucking satisfying. And here in this series, it just doesn't ever really feel that way. I feel like the last time that something ended in a really like, yeah, we did it sort of feeling was the Blaine the Mono.
I was about to say Blaine, yeah.
Yeah.
Because even the fucking the fight with the wolves didn't feel that way.
No, it didn't. It really didn't. So yeah.
No, I agree with you. I think that it's interesting that not only are we back with Eddie and Roland before we were back with Susannah and Mia, but that their story is yet again slowing down. I mean, when we left them, they were on their way to Turtleback Lane in Lovell because they needed to get to where Susannah is, and they had fucking, you know, they had gotten the contract from Tower and Deepno, and Eddie had his little premonition they were going to go see the writer, and they went and saw the writer, and now they're speeding off to finally go find Susannah, and not only do they get derailed by the wave, but they get derailed by Eddie once again being like, no, wait, there's something else we have to do. Mm-hmm. And it's like, when you're first reading it, it's like, really? There's more?
Yeah.
You know, and I guess I get what you're saying in terms of, like, you know, somebody could just fucking piss on this document you've got and then the rose is gone again. But really? There's more? Like, again, it feels like one of those things where it's like, dude, I could handwave this. Like, you could tell me, like, and we put it in the mail and addressed it to Moses Carver and he received it and everything was well. And I'd be like, all right, that's fine.
Honestly, that's the other thing, is that, like, not only, like, if you're going to have it so that Eddie and Roland don't even go back and deal with them, you have to give the story the two of them. You can't both have the reader not get to go back and find out what happens and have Eddie and Roland not go back. Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
You gotta let us have something, because ending the last book the way that he did, and starting it and still not getting to the fucking point within the first 3 chapters. It just feels like, do you have anything else to say, or are you relying completely on this thing to kind of carry the story right now? Because if you are, I got news for you. Magic babies are boring. Real boring. And I'm already bored, and I've been bored since we found out she was pregnant, and you're not helping. Like, I just hate this whole premise so much anyway, that to not have it be fucking over finally, and her having given birth, like, Jesus. And, yeah, and then, not only are they not going back, they're not going back because of fucking paperwork. Does it get more goddamn boring than that?
Well, not only that, but it's like, this is all shit that's happened before. Like, when Eddie is like, God damn it, don't you know how much it's killing me to not go save my wife? We're like, yeah, dude, we know, because you told us in the last book like 3 times.
You
like,
know?
It's the same fucking thing. And just, and you know, as much as I really enjoy John Cullum as a character, it's kind of telling that they're going back. It's almost like King was like, oh shit.
Right.
No, I need him. He didn't go anywhere.
I just I don't just basically like, well, I could save my wife, but I really have to see a notary. Like, I just don't understand how we're getting put off on, like, the thing that I've been waiting forever for us to get done with. For something as banal as, like, oh yeah, here's this paper that might not hold up in court. That's what Roland's thinking is, well, you know, we've got it, but who knows what lawyers might do with this? Are we really doing this right now? Is that really, like, the thing that we're supposed to be fucking concerned about? Is the title doesn't seem valid for the vacant lot? Like, I get that the vacant lot is the rose, and the rose is important, and that we're supposed to really care, but you try and hold up this Calvin Towers signed piece of scrap paper versus a character that we know and love from 4 books ago having a supernatural pregnancy. Gee, I wonder which one I'd rather fucking hear about.
Yeah. If I talk any more about this particular plot thread, then I will I have to do it through the lens of, like, what I have read of the rest of this book, which is all of it, and so I'm not going to do that right now. But I'll have more to say about this as we move on with Roland and Eddie's story. A couple of things. So when they see Susannah, she sees them.
Right.
And she says a single word that is apparently super important, and the word is chassit. Which, and...
Listen, yeah, all right, sure.
So
I forgot about this until you just said this, and now I'm mad again. I don't think that I disliked this while I was reading it the way that I'm disliking it as we go back and talk about it now. Now, and like in retrospect, is when I'm just being like, for fuck's sake.
Well, and I like not to bring this up again because it's a new book and I probably shouldn't talk about it, but this is exactly why I feel like it's a better experience to fly through this instead of analyzing it, which doesn't necessarily speak to the quality of the writing, to be honest. But like when you're swept up in the story and it like takes you like a fucking like a wave along the beam, and it just like bears you where you want to go, and you're willing to ride with it. Like it's so much better, I think, because you're just like you're flying over this shit. You're like, okay, yeah, John Cullum, you know, where's the fucking Susannah part? You know what I mean?
Right.
So I totally understand why going back makes it more frustrating. But yes, so when she says this word, it makes Roland think of his mom, and they had hinted at the Oedipus complex in earlier books.
Yeah, what's up, guys? We're just going to talk about this.
They just outright say it here.
Yeah, this was like... there's a point sometimes with King where I just have to laugh because trust him to take a moment where a character gets to say one word to convey a message. And not only does that character use a word that the reader has never heard or seen before, ever.
Unless they know this nursery rhyme.
But also uses a word that really the character themselves should also not know, if we're being strict about it.
Yeah.
And that word ties in with some weird sex shit. That's like King in a fucking nutshell. Is he's like, here's a thing that's impossible for anybody to understand, also fucking Freud. Like, how does he do this every time?
If I were coming up with a name for this episode, it would just be also, Freud.
I don't know. On the one hand, it irritates me. On the other hand, it's so like quintessentially him that I can't even be mad. It's almost like I should just be mad at myself for not expecting it.
Yeah, I think the most quintessentially King part of this, and I don't, maybe it's the most quintessentially Dark Tower part of this, but it feels like, Dark Tower is kind of the ultimate King in terms of, what he wants to do as a storyteller.
Right.
But the ultimate part is when he thinks about the rhyme again, and he thinks, Chusset, Chisset, Chasset, 17, 18, 19.
What the fuck?
I'm over here going like, no, dude, that's 3. That's 3, and the only reason it's 19 is because you started from 16. For no reason.
Is it supposed to be the number of letters in the words, in the 3 words?
There's...
Chusset, C-H-U-S-S-E-T.
There's 7 in all of them. That's...
So that's 21.
That's 21.
Okay, so I don't get it. Yeah,
no, there's no... He's just like... It has to be 19, right? So it makes no sense. Oh, wait, no, hold on. So I guess his mom told him that those words relate to the numbers 17, 18, and 19. That's my mistake. But still.
Okay. So wait, what exactly did she say? I don't remember that.
The words weren't quite nonsense, but old numbers, she told him once when he asked. Chusset, Chisset, Chasset, 17, 18, 19.
Oh. Well, that seems like a bad policy to have numbers sound so alike when you say them out loud. That just feels really confusing for no good reason.
I mean, isn't that what the teens are, though?
No, 17, 18, 19. I guess you're right.
Chusset, Chisset. I mean,
Chasset.
Yeah. I guess it would be like if it was like Nantine, Nontine, 19.
Yeah.
Kind of like that. That would be confusing. I think they should start with different letters. That should be, I think we should write a letter to the linguistic.
Yeah, so we have like Chusset, Nisset, Tasset.
Yeah, exactly.
There you go.
Exactly.
See, I solved this shit, guys.
Anyway.
Good. I should just start a civilization. Jeez.
Yeah. So I just had like a rant about something that didn't actually prove to be relevant, but that's kind of what I do, so.
It's fine. We're all used to it by now. Classic Miles, am I right, guys?
Would you have been surprised if I had been right?
No, I mean, like, that's the thing. Is that I feel like he's playing so fast and loose with everything at this point that I'm more surprised when it turns out that there is some, like, grounding to something.
It's like, holy shit, you had an explanation?
Yeah, and that sounds way more snide than I even really mean it to, but also it's still true. So I guess I'll just stand by it. Like there comes a point where it's like, whose fault is that?
Yeah.
I can't keep apologizing for my opinion. It's just like, you forced me into a corner here, guy.
So, yeah, then he does the thing with Callahan and Jake, which I think we've already covered. Mm-hmm. When they get done, they have this weird conversation, and Roland starts having these weird philosophical thoughts, which he shakes himself for.
Yeah, don't care for Roland being philosophical. He can't handle that shit. Just focus, guy. You don't. This isn't your forte. And
he's like, it basically takes a minute in the middle of all this like danger to be like, they say a man can't pull himself up by his bootstraps, but what if he can?
Just like, I mean, what if?
I would have loved to.
Real boring question. Then I guess he's up. The end.
I would have been into Eddie's reaction if he had said that out loud.
Oh my god.
I would have liked to read that.
I just imagine Eddie being so like over the whole. Eddie's just doesn't have the patience right now, which I very much sympathize with. Eddie, by the way, what's up? But yeah, I want Roland right now, after everything being so fucking esoteric, I want Roland to like get back to it. So
yeah, and he snaps back into it, although Eddie does send him to get some aspirin because his leg is hurting, and a poor boy sandwich, a po' boy, I think as they say it in Louisiana, which is the only place I've had him. And my favorite part about that is just when Roland comes back, because Eddie had asked for mayonnaise.
Oh
and
my God.
he's like, I'd want a sauce that looked a little bit less like cum if it was me, but to each their own.
'Cause he's gotta be a dick about it. Come on. That's a 12-year-old joke. Yeah, well.
Anyway, so Eddie calls John Cullum, and one of the things that I also recognize about this that I thought was interesting was like, they're talking so much about Ka in this chapter. Like, this third chapter is like, well, we need, who we need is John Cullum, right? Because we feel like he's our Dan Tet. And they're like, but we told him to leave. He left. And Roland says, no, he didn't leave. And Eddie's like, why? And he's like, well, because we need him. He's the only person we know around here.
Yeah.
So it's all of that kind of shit. And for all that, like, in all that, for Eddie to then, like, call the operator and have the operator look up the dude's phone number and then be super worried that he would forget the phone number, so he, like, writes it down. I feel like if Eddie had just, like, punched in 10 numbers, he would have gotten it right. Like, that's where we're at in the story. Yes. And King could have been like, he just knew instinctually which numbers to press. And I would have been, again, I would have been like, all right, that's fine. Because this is the kind of world we're in right now. It was an interesting contrast. I thought it was funny.
Yeah, I agree. And that's the kind of thing where I feel like this you can't simultaneously create tension and suspense out of something as banal as dialing a phone number and have everything magically be working out all the time. Like, there's a mention several times in just that chapter and the one after how lucky it is that there's nobody around.
Yeah.
When the fucking car is floating and when there's a mutant on the road. Like, like, there's just so much good luck. And then Stephen King is trying to be like, ooh, will he be home? Oh no, he didn't answer. It's his machine. And I'm like, do you think I'm worried? Do you really think that I don't know that he's going to be there? Like, you've set it up that even if he's not there, it's going to be because he's driving to where they are by accident.
Right.
There comes a point where you have to decide whether you want your reader to be, like, surprised by the twist of things constantly working out or feel concerned. You can't constantly have things just work out and have us be on the edge of our seat.
Right.
Which is what I've just kind of started to feel with this series, is a certain amount of impatience with this drawing out of this story with Susannah, because I don't it's not even that I'm not worried about Susannah, because I'm not sure if she's going to make it out of it or not. What it really is that I'm not sure it will pay off, whichever happens, because I feel like it's going to feel like a convenience, whatever the outcome is. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I understand. I do. Again, I totally, I feel the same way. I felt the same way when I was reading this for the first time. I feel differently about certain things, having read the whole book, but we'll talk about them later. But, I don't know. It really, I'll say this. I feel like Dark Tower is a series, ultimately, and I guess it's true of most series, but, like, way more so in this case. Like, let's see how, like, I'm really interested in knowing how you feel about all of this when we get to the end. That's what I'll say. But for now, yeah, it's ridiculously frustrating. It's like, I was reading this again being like, why didn't he just punch in numbers randomly until he got the right number? Like, it would have fucking worked. Especially because they keep finding themselves in places like Roland talks about how they, things work out or they feel a certain way in this area because it's where King lives.
Right.
And, there's kind of, it doesn't just feel like everything's just going to work out all the time. It's also that, like, it is that, but it's also that it feels like there's always some, like, kind of magic reason for it. Like, oh, well, we're near this, or so-and-so's here, or, or the quartet talks for a while and they come up with some philosophical reason for why it should be so, and everybody just accepts that. And again, it's fine, and I think that it's, it is what it is, but it can be death to any tension you're trying to create with something like making a phone call. Especially because, and the interesting thing is that the characters know it. Like, Eddie has this weird thing here where he's like, he doesn't think he can remember the numbers anymore, and he doesn't know if he still knows how to read. It's like he's kind of becoming a different kind of person who doesn't do things like, as he puts it, go and watch Star Wars again. But when he gets Cullum's machine, he says
that he knows he's sitting there screening the call.
I know you're there, and I think you've been waiting for my call. Don't ask me why I think that, because I don't really know, and then he picks up. So it's like, even fucking Eddie is like, yeah, you know what, this is all gonna be fine.
Yeah.
So, anyway, we should probably say at some point that the whole reason they're doing any of this is because Eddie thinks that they need to actually establish some kind of structured something or other to be this Tet corporation that they've basically made up to this point. And they gotta find Susannah's, it's not uncle, it's like her dad's friend, because she runs the company. She runs Holmes Dental. Or she owns it anyway.
Right.
So this guy, Moses Carver, is the dude who takes care of the money for us. They gotta find him. And they want to bring John Cullum into this because he's, like we said earlier, he's the only one they know that they can do this with. And they think that there's kind of a line they think they might hit him off because they're both the same age or something like that. They're similar ages. So Eddie is worried that basically they have a chance to set something up to be in constant opposition to North Central Positronics and Sombra. And he doesn't want to, like, miss the shot because they can't ever come back to this time, is the deal. So that's why they call Cullum. They're going to meet up with him and do whatever it is they're going to do with him. And as they're driving to meet him, they run into a weird mutant thing.
This was super unexpected and so strange.
Very weird. I had forgotten about this entirely.
Yeah, okay. All right. So let's just talk about what actually happens, and then I'm going to ask my questions because I got some.
Okay.
So this thing, it's described as having like a tooth coming out of its nose. Like, this thing is fucked up.
Yeah, its eyes bled together above the bridge of its nose, reminding him of a double-yolked egg in a fry pan. Ugh. A fang depended from one nostril like a bone booger.
Oh my god, I can't. This is the shit I'm talking about, guys, where I'm just like, where do you even think of something that horrifying? A fucking fang coming out of somebody's nostril, that's just too far. You just took it too far, guy. I don't think I can keep up anymore. It's fine. All right, moving on.
So they run into it, and Roland like gets out of the car, gets his gun, and like demands that it stop, or he says something to it in like a foreign language. Yeah,
it's like it runs and hides in a complete panic when it sees them.
Yeah,
but then realizes that Roland is a gunslinger and comes out and asks for a sigil.
Yeah, he says, "So come forth, you child of Roderick, you spoiled, you lost, and make your bow before me, Roland, son of Stephen of the line of Eld." And it asks for a sigil. Sorry.
You did it.
Damn it.
You said sigil. Get off my podcast.
It's fucking dangerous. Anyway. So Roland shows him the cross that Aunt Talitha gave him, and Roland starts questioning it.
And this is the question I have here. Is how does he know, just because this thing is here from that land, that land is where they took Mia? Or that Mia went? Do you know what I'm talking about here?
Yeah.
You have such a resigned sound to your voice right now.
I don't have an explanation.
Yeah.
Well, I'm looking over the book for something fucking she told him the old words were actually numbers. You know what I mean? Like, I'm looking here. Mm-hmm. They say a bunch of words like there's like a bunch of weird words, and he says, "How many Dandavar?" Which the answer is 50, but neither Eddie nor us know what the fuck Dandavar means. Mm-hmm. And he says, "Discordia, are you sure?" And the guy's like, "Yeah, dude, totally Discordia." And he's like, "All right, well, say the name of the town that stands near Castle Discordia and I'll release you." It's like, it's not like information he wants, it's like he wants him to say it. It's like almost like, say the name of my father who you killed or something. Like,
I don't get
it. It's that kind of thing. It's like fucking Oberyn Martell wanting the Mountain to say the names of his sister.
Right.
And it's like, it's weird.
Yeah, I'm just gonna say it. I don't get it. I don't get what's happening here. I think partially you're not supposed to completely get it.
Yeah, I'm gonna be totally honest. If this is explained later on, I don't remember the explanation.
But yeah, I'm just like, I don't know. It felt another oh, that's really convenient. So now he just knows where she is at or gonna be or whatever the fuck.
I mean, I don't understand what information he's getting. Obviously it's because I don't understand the language, but I mean, he wants to know how many of these kinds of little mutants there are around here.
Right.
And then the dude just tells him some shit about Discordia, and he's like, "Oh, okay, how many nonsense words are there?" And the guy's like, 50. And he's like, "Cool. Say the name."
Right.
It's like, this makes no sense, Roland. What are you doing?
Yeah, I don't really get it.
And then when the guy says his name, he shoots him in the head, because that's release, because he asked for it, which is, again, bizarre. And this is just such a weird way to end this chapter and this episode.
I mean, yeah, I feel like I've been really hard on this series of chapters, and it sounds like I hated it so much, and I didn't hate it while I was reading it. But I am feeling really frustrated in retrospect. And I think I didn't hate it while I was reading it, in part because I was so sure as we went on that I was going to be given more of a payoff. And I finished reading like a minute before I called you to start recording. So I didn't get a chance to let it sink in how I really felt about it. But now that we have a chance to, like, you know, chill out and look at things, yeah, I'm feeling a little salty, and I just hope that, like, this shit starts to do something.
It's just, it's such a, yeah, it's so, one of the weirdest parts for me is when he says Fedek, it says, Fedek screamed at Chevin of Chavin, a wandering musica who could never have suspected its life would end in such a far, strange place. Like, what?
Right.
What, did he fucking play guitar for quarters? Like, what do you, with a fang coming out of his nose? What is happening?
Yeah, I think what it comes down to with King, honestly, is that he just likes to do too much.
Yeah, I think that's it. I mean, because, like, like, honestly, even if this encounter needs desperately to be here, who the fuck cares who this guy is?
Right.
Like, I just don't. And he, like, throws in those details, and I think it's meant to, you know, kind of make the world feel more lived in, or, like, you know, a little bit more fleshed out, like this whole universe. But I think the only real effect it ends up having in a lot of cases is, like, kind of breaks you out of the story while you're wondering what he's even talking about. Mm-hmm. And the fact that it's like, this is not information our characters are discovering. This is information that our characters don't even know. That we are just being, like, handed... We are being handed this information from on high, so to speak. Mm-hmm. Like, Roland doesn't know this guy was a fucking whatever a musica is. You know? Like, only we know that, and there's no reason for it. And it feels like not... It doesn't feel like characters exploring a world so much as, like fucking the author being like, oh, also, this was in my notes.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Which, I mean, honestly, is kind of how I feel about more recent Martin stuff that he's putting out, you know? It's like, okay, well, that's great, man. Like, it's really not what I'm here for, but it's great. It's really fine.
Not what I'm here for.
Like, it's fine, I guess. Like, you know, maybe I can think about this guy and be sad because he was not expecting to die here, even though he blatantly asked to. I don't know. What, just like...
Yeah, you know what? Stephen King, you're fucking extra, guy. That's all. That's fine. You know what? So am I. You know what? I'm not even gonna, like, judge you about it. Like, sometimes I'm here for it, and sometimes I'm not. And it's not even your fault all the time when I am and when I'm not. It's not predictable even to me when I'm going to be in the mood for your shit.
Right.
So
right.
I can't, and I only hope that if I ever fucking finish writing what I'm trying to write, that my readers will be somewhat understanding also. Because I know there are going to be moments where they're just like, what are you doing? So, you know what? Just be extra and just own it. And I think he does.
Yeah, I think so too.
So, alright, sure.
Alright. You wanna, let's do, I'm thinking 2 chapters next week, or, yeah, I think that's probably best.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know.
I love how you always do this every time.
Every fucking time, I know. Hold
You're
on.
just, like, so, like, confident for just a second, and then all of a sudden, you're like, wait, no, I don't know anything. Hold on, wait, no, wait. But I am 100% fine with just doing, like, whatever. I don't mind reading more as long as you feel like the chapters have a good rhythm and go together.
Right, that's what I'm looking at. I think they do.
Okay.
So yeah, I would say next 2. But I'll hit you up if I think it should only be the 1. But I think 2 is good.
Okay, cool. Alrighty then. I should say hi to new patrons, shouldn't I?
You should.
I should be prepared for this. Sorry guys, I got a little thrown off track by our. I guess I expected to be more positive from the outset of this book because it's a fresh new book, and even when I haven't been thrilled with the way that previous books have ended, the start of things has always been satisfying and has kind of made up for it. So I think I got kind of caught off guard by how unsatisfied I was by this after all.
I think part of the problem is that it doesn't feel like a new book because of where the last one ended.
Yeah, maybe that is true. That is what it is.
He takes a minute at the beginning to remind us that, Jake and Callahan were outside the Dixie Pig, but it's like the Song of Susannah ends before any of its climaxes. Mm-hmm. There's 3 things happening in that book. Roland and Eddie are trying to do shit in the real world. Jake and Callahan are gonna fucking go into the Dixie Pig, and Susannah and Mia are having the baby. And it just ends without resolving any of them. So now it's like, okay, well, first we'll see what's happening in the Dixie Pig, and then we're going to go see what else Roland and Eddie are doing in the real world, and then eventually we'll get to what happens with the birth.
Right.
So it's very similar to to Wizard and Glass, I would say, where it's like the first thing he had to do was resolve the Blaine story. Right. Because that shit was a cliffhanger at the end of the Wastelands. And it's just so yeah, I absolutely understand and agree with you about that feeling. I think it's just it doesn't feel like a new book. It doesn't feel like the beginning of anything. Yeah. Because we just stopped Susannah in the middle.
And even with the ones that it did blame the mono starting off with that, at least it felt like by the end of the first chapter that was resolved. And I don't feel like that here. So even though it might not have felt like a brand new book, it was still satisfying because it was wrapping something up, and he still fucking hasn't wrapped up. So I'm just let's just do this for Christ's sake. All right, so new patrons. I'm going to say hi to y'all. We have this week Tony, Kate Miles, Daniela Scott. That's my name, except it's spelled with a Y. Very exotic.
Oh, well,
Mary E. Fenton, Jonna Peltokangas. What a name. I love it. Ashley Burdett, Ben, Brenna, Dan Goddard, Matthew Ponder, Gemma Lindley, Jokeslayer94, Esk, Sarah McDougall, Michelle Gomez, Becky Foote, Jackie Gunn, Kay Wakeman. Jackie's actually been a patron, but still. Hi, Jackie. Kay Wakeman, Michael Sardina, Kayla Harless, and Jordan Rose. All just became patrons. So welcome to all of you delightful, wonderful, generous, kind people.
What's up, guys?
I hope that you all realize that you are superior human beings to those who are not patrons. And if you should wish to get on that level, you can go to patreon.com/unspoiled to ascend to the next level of human existence.
I mean, yeah, if you're into that kind of thing.
If you want to, be better than everyone else. That's all. So, patreon.com/unspoiled. And I'm working on something that'll be starting sometime next month. I don't have a firm date yet, but Rashawn and I are going to be starting a show that will be for $20 and up patrons, and I will be splitting the money that I get from those pledges with her. And it is going to be called Unsobered, the Squadcast. And she and I are going to talk about anything from, we're not going to do current events because we want to be happy. So we're going to talk about things like jelly beans or a new album that came out by somebody, maybe some like celebrity gossip, but it'll be really funny because we neither of us know celebrity names or information. So we'll make up most of it or, just be wrong. And what our favorite like Ben and Jerry's flavor is, or what is your favorite holiday, or do you like sandwiches? These are the pressing subjects that we will cover. And there will also be a section where we give advice, and we will be sure to give you the worst possible advice, probably advise you to commit murder or something else that could land you in prison. I'm going to try and have a special segment in the show called Feminazi Corner, where I give advice from the perspective of a unrepentant misandrist, and just really lean into that a little bit. And, just stuff like, it's just going to be fun and bullshitting is what Rashawn and I do best, to be honest. We do it for about 2 hours before every recording, before we even start. It's a little stupid that I haven't been charging for it this whole time. So I figure I may as well just press record and charge for that shit.
I don't see why you can't make a couple of dimes off that.
Yep. So, and I hope that all of you who listen appreciate the fact that I don't do ads on my podcasts. Like I've done like one a year on average. And some of that is just laziness. Cutting ads into episodes is the worst, and I don't like doing it. But a lot of it is just that I understand that podcasts have to have them, but ads on shows just makes me a little bit twitchy. And so I don't like to do it myself because I don't like to listen to them. And having a Patreon is how I avoid having to put ads on stuff. And I've gotten some criticism in some reviews recently about like, she never stops talking about her Patreon. And I'm like, you mean by never stops talking about it, you mean I mention it in the 5 minutes at the very end of every show? Then sure, I guess.
Yeah, like most podcasts would make you listen to that shit or skip past it first, y'all.
Right. Yeah, I feel like I'm pretty reasonable, and not for nothing, but even if you do have to listen to me talk about my Patreon, the content is fucking free, so get over it.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, really, just get over it.
Yeah.
So, if you want to throw a few bucks my way every month, if you do $10 and up, you get postcards, which are pretty sweet. And I just designed the next one, which has a Luna Lovegood theme, which I'm excited about. And if you donate a lot of money, I'll invite you to my wedding. That's not true.
I was wondering how I got invited.
$10,000 and up. That's my newest tier.
$10,000 check I sent out the other day because, I'm just loaded.
I figure if I can get 15 or so patrons at $1,000 a pop for entry to my wedding, that pays for the wedding. Maybe I should do that. That should be a thing.
Yeah, that should be a goal anyway.
Come and party with us. Owen is very much like, he's already talking about like, do you want to like live stream our wedding to the Unspoiled page? And I'm like, see, this is why I'm marrying you. I love you so much. Because yes, I do.
Oh my God.
Anyway, so that's it. Miles, take it away, sir.
Oh, man. All right. Y'all can find everything I do over at www.mjschneiderman.com. That is MJSCHNEIDERMAN.com. That has links to pretty much all my current work. You can go check out the Smash Fiction podcast. We are also on Patreon, so if you want to donate a little bit of money to us, that would be awesome. If you don't already do that. We just came out with, let's see, what was our last episode? Our last episode was something called, the latest episode is something called Collaboratory, which is where we kind of do a game where we all bring random characters and story elements to the table, to the recording, and then we try to make a movie out of them.
Nice.
Not knowing what everybody else brought beforehand. Yeah, this one's called Don't You Forget About Me. It's pretty fun. It involves a kind of supernatural mystery horror thing in a high school in the 80s, and it's got Quasimodo and Molly from the Runaways and Scully and Slender Man in it, so
Ooh.
Yeah, go check that out. It's a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun doing it. Coming up this coming Sunday, we are going to have I believe it's our old Harrison Ford's match.
I love that. That's a good one.
It's old Harrison Ford from Blade Runner versus old Harrison Ford from Force Awakens versus old Harrison Ford from Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. So
I like it.
Yeah, that's coming out this coming Sunday. You can also check out the Odyssey Storytelling Podcast, which comes out every Friday. And actually, I just realized that I don't know when you're getting this out, but depending on when you get this out, the old Harrison Fords may already be out because we're recording on a weird day. So that might actually already be available. Anyway, Odyssey Storytelling Podcast is also out. Like I said, every Friday, once a month, it's a full live recording of the live show we do here in Tucson, where 6 people tell stories based on a theme. We put that out once a month. I think that's coming out next week. The one for Marches that we did earlier in the month. And then the rest of the week we just put out these like little 10-minute stories where, from past live shows. And I pick them out. I host and produce the show. It's a lot of fun. So if you want to help me out, because I actually get paid for that, then go give that one a listen. And also you can go to universesofthemind.com for something I wrote in like September, and hopefully for something I'll write soon.
I love that every recording we do is like a tiny prayer to the writing gods that you send out.
I know.
Like, I'm just, maybe next time it will have happened.
Maybe next time I plug this shit, I can say, check out the new one! But I can't today. So I haven't had time. I'm working on a lot of shit right now. I'm trying to get paid. I'm trying to live that freelance writing life, and it is not financially kind as of right now, but that's hopefully changing soon. So, we'll see. But yeah, that's where you can find my stuff for now. I got a lot of shit in the works that I would love to talk about. So as soon as I figure them out, I will let you know what they are.
Well, cool. All right, well, I think that's everything then. I feel like I'm forgetting to announce something, but, I probably am.
I think you just feel like incomplete because I didn't vaguely trail off, and then my promo for myself didn't just come to a stumbling halt for no reason right there. I think that's throwing you off a little bit.
That might be part of it.
Yeah.
Listen, I'm not going to judge you either. I'm going to be so magnanimous tonight. But guys, I really appreciate you all. I just want you to know I've been seeing some weird drama with some other podcasts with which I am not affiliated, podcasts that I don't even listen to, but Owen listens to on Twitter and stuff, and people going in on each other, and it's just being really ugly. And I just want to thank you guys for all not being like that. And for being legit, straight up pretty cool, solidly throughout. I'm trying to think if I've ever had any run-ins with anybody specifically with this show. And I don't think that's... the only thing is that we got a 2-star review recently because they said that we have too many reveries about my youth. Which, on the one hand, fair. And on the other hand, too bad.
Yeah, seriously. What about my youth? You like all that?
There's just there's times where people's criticisms, I'm just well, then maybe this isn't for you. And I'm not even mad at them. It's just yeah, sure. That's fair. And if you don't like that, I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, absolutely.
But there has been nobody who's been an asshole and come at me in a certain way or come at you. And you guys are just great. And I want to give you all a big, giant ear hug. So, here, feel it. Did you feel it?
I felt it.
Psych, I'm just burrowing into your brain.
Ah!
Ha-ha. All right, toodaloo, motherfuckers.
Unspoiled Network podcast.